All right, YouTube. I'm going to try and make this a quicker video than my last one. An hour and 20 minutes is a bit much, but I mentioned in the last video that I no longer follow or watch professional sports of any kind. And I actually ended up having a conversation with my son this morning about he wants me to watch the Batman movie with him, the one with the vampire kid there, Pattinson, Edward Pattinson or whatever. And it kind of got me thinking, like, we're just so saturated with these superhero movies, and we're so saturated with professional sports and everything. And Wrangler Star actually made a video on this. If you've been on YouTube at all, you know who he is. I don't know him. I've never met him. I've never had any contact with him. But he made a video on this, and it really made sense. And this is what I've felt for some time now. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I lived and died by New England Patriots football, and the Providence Bruins and the Boston Bruins hockey teams. I had season tickets to the Providence Bruins. I'd go to every game with my family, with my wife and my son. And, we followed this, and we were really into it. And I was really into Patriots football. And it got to a point where I started to realize that it was around the time when there was the big concern and the big uproar about people kneeling during the national anthem. I started to realize that all this was a way to control us, to keep us distracted from the excesses and the corruption of our government, which is run by let's call it what it is. It's today's royalty. The corporations and the rich people are today's royalty. And I thought of a cool thing like, ooh, red and blue make purple, and purple's the color of royalty. But I'll really look like I'm crazy if I say that. But regardless of who's in power, whether it's liberal Democrats, conservative Republicans, whatever, they're all serving the same masters, the corporations and the rich people. And professional sports and the professional sports rivalries and I have to support my team because I live in New England, and I have to support my team because I live in Chicago or whatever. All that is a way to keep us entertained and keep our minds off the fact that the corporate government is bending us over and completely using us and enslaving us to create more profit for them. So I was trying to express this to my son this morning, and Wrangler Star did a good job of it. He discussed how the Roman Empire, the ancient Roman Empire, created the Colosseum when it was in its dwindling days, when it was winding down from being an empire to just being a corrupt, overreaching government, much like we have now. And they created the Colosseum, and they had these violent sports that, gladiators killing each other and slaves getting hunted down by lions and stuff like that. And it was to entertain the people, and all of the rage and aggression that they could feel at this government that was using them inappropriately and treating them as slaves, as much as our government is now, was directed towards, I'm gonna root for this gladiator, and you're gonna root for that gladiator, and we're not gonna get along because of it. And that's exactly what the people in power wanted. And it's exactly what the people in power want now. You look at these professional sports teams, you look at, these are men who are paid millions of dollars to play a game, to chase around a ball, or to chase around a little rubber puck, and get in fights with each other and hit each other hard and be violent to each other. And what is that? I want you to think about that at its very basis. What is that? It's a form of gladiatorial competition, and it's being used in such a way that we're going to feel anger towards the government for not having appropriate health care, for not having appropriate wages at our jobs, for being treated like slaves, for the fact that people need to work 3, 4 jobs just to be able to afford to live, the fact that there isn't appropriate housing, and people have to live in apartments and condos and high rises and all this. That's stuff we should be mad about. And at a subconscious level, we are. The anger and depression that people feel in the cities, in the suburbs, even in the rural areas, is because we are not being treated appropriately by our government. Years ago, government was a duty. It was guys like me, farmers, fishermen, carpenters, woodworkers, blacksmiths, and they would go and serve in the government for a set amount of time, and then they'd go back to their careers. Today, government is a career. You've got people who have been in the Senate and the Congress for decades, and all they're doing is lining their own pockets with our work. So, what is the purpose of these professional sports? It's to keep us entertained. It's to keep us caring about something that doesn't matter when we should be caring about the fact that the government is screwing us daily, minute by minute. And when my son mentioned the Batman movie, it kind of set this ball rolling in my head that it's not just the professional sports. It's all of these ultra-violent movies and these movies that show the new thing is what kind of a male are you? Are you an alpha male? Are you a sigma male? And that's, let's be honest, that's just another way to divide us, because the alpha males think they're the best and the sigma males think they're the best, and they'll come into conflict and they won't think about the greater problems of society. So you have all of these different things that have been made to divide us so that we don't unite and go after the real problem, which is a government that has become bloated and corrupt and overbearing and overreaching. So you've got these superhero movies where there's the hero and he's saving people and he's doing this and he's doing that, and or he's an anti-hero. He's a dark hero he's got problems, he's got trauma, but he's still going out there and doing what's right. And all that is just another form of what the Romans and most recently Wrangler Star in his video called bread and circus. It's violent entertainment so that our tendency towards anger and rage at being misused by our government is directed into something that they can channel and control. Another big thing about this, I stopped watching, like I said, I stopped watching professional sports around the time that people started kneeling during the national anthem. And I think that was an effective protest against police violence, in that you're getting your view out there. You're showing that you don't feel that this country is perfect. But immediately all of the talking heads started jumping up and down. The Fox News and the different news networks started jumping up and down and saying this is disrespectful, this is this is that. And all of the people who have all of this anger started latching on to that and going, you know what, they're right. They shouldn't be doing this. This is so disrespectful. This is horrible. What's more respectful than kneeling? Seriously, we created an issue to further divide the people while they're watching a sport that was created to further divide them and keep them busy. we live in a system that relies on us being dumb and relies on our own stupidity and our own ignorance of the system that we live in, using us as little more than slaves to create their own profit with money, which is really just the creation. It's a fake number. It's like grades when you're in school. Oh, I got an 89. I should have got a 90, and I would have got an A. It's the same thing with money. It's something that we created. It doesn't mean anything. It's just pieces of paper. I mean, at least years ago, it was backed by precious metals, but now it's just pieces of paper. Why do you think there's so much inflation? Why do you think there's eggs cost $5 a carton? Because it's all so that they can keep increasing this fake number in their bank account. And so we've all bought into this system, and there are a lot of people like me who haven't bought into this system and who wish to live differently, but they go about it the wrong way. You've got these militia groups and these terrorist groups who think that they're going to actively change the world through these acts of violence, and it's common sense would tell you that's not going to work. Killing innocent people, blowing up buildings, doing these things is not an effective way. Aside from being morally wrong, it's not an effective way to foster the change that you want. The best way to foster that change is to live that change. I don't want to be part of a global economy. I don't want to be part of the consumer culture. So I have turned my small piece of land into a self-producing farm. I raise meat. I have chickens that lay eggs. I grow my own vegetables. I bake my own bread. Everything that I can produce on my own, I do, because each thing that I'm producing is an active resistance against the corporate government. It's an active resistance against a consumer society, a divided society. And I mean, there's going to be people who watch this and say, yeah, that's great. He lives in the middle of nowhere. He can do that. I live in an apartment in, downtown New York. Anything you can do as a form of active resistance to the consumer culture, to the slave culture of corporate government in America, is a victory for you. Let's say, okay, you can't grow your own food, you can't raise rabbits, you live in an apartment. You can bake for yourself, you can bake your own bread, you can make your own tea. You can brew your own tea. I see lines. It's disgusting to me. I'll drive by Dunkin' Donuts, and there'll be lines of cars going through the drive-thru, backed up onto the road because, they all got to go get their iced coffee, their dunks. And that's a big cultural thing around here. I brew my own coffee at home. Yes, I have to buy it, but I buy it in bulk, and I buy it knowing that, okay, I'm not going to be buying Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I'm not going to be buying whatever the Dunkin' Donuts is in different places in America. We have this consumer culture that we will wait in line in traffic to get a cup of coffee when you could easily just make it at home and it'll taste better. We've been so conditioned that we need to spend money and do these things that anything that you can do is an act of active resistance. Instead of going to the restaurants, make your own food. Buy the essentials if you can't grow them. But make your own food, make your own dinners, make your own breakfasts, make your own lunches. Make your own coffee, make your own tea, bake your own bread. Just because you live in a city or an urban area or even a suburban area and you can't have chickens, you can't have a garden. You can't have this. You can't have that. You can still reduce how much of a consumer you are. You can still reduce how much the corporate government gets from you. And I know all this sounds crazy. I know I sound like I should be wearing a tinfoil hat and this, that, and the other thing. But one of the things that I've been doing over the past decade, really, has been I do all the maintenance and all of the mechanic work on our cars. And we just got my wife a new car, actually, because her Toyota had 250,000 miles on it, and I didn't want to deal with that anymore. It was too much in the way of, we had replaced the alternator, we were going to end up replacing the transmission. I didn't want to do that, so we ended up selling the car and getting a new one from a dealership. And the car that we bought, the oil drain plug had clearly been put on with an air gun, and I couldn't get it off, so I had to take it to a Jiffy Lube for them to get it off. And it would have cost, if I didn't bring the oil myself, it would have cost $170 to change the oil and the filter. It ended up only costing us $50 because I brought that in, but I had already paid about $40 for the oil and the filter. So it still cost me $90 to have somebody else do it when it could have just been $40 doing it myself. And again, this goes back to the inflation and the fact that money is just this, it's a number. It's a concept we've created to control ourselves. And I'm not saying society can ever exist without money. I know it can't. It's become so ingrained in the culture of people for the thousands of years that it's a necessary evil. But you can reduce how much you depend on a culture that is only there to take your money. It's very easy to bake bread in your own oven. It's very easy to have, even you live in an apartment, you live in a studio apartment in New York City, you can still have on your windowsill a little herb garden. You can have a little rosemary plant, little chives, whatever, and it'll grow on, and you can do it in the little containers on your windowsill. I'm not saying we all have to live like me. I'm saying there needs to be a deeper thought in, okay, why is it such a big deal that we're going to have the Super Bowl and wings, and I drink this beer, so I'm a real man, and you drink White Claw seltzers, so you're a beta male, and this and that. We're allowing society to dictate what we believe instead of having society reflect what we believe. We've become so obsessed with fitting in that we no longer care that we're being used as slaves. And anything that you can do to actively resist that in terms of reducing your dependence on that society, reducing your involvement in that culture, is an active act of resistance to that culture. It's an active resistance to the way the government treats us and the way the corporations treat us and the way the rich treat the poor. There's no middle class in America. You're either rich or you're poor. It's the way it is. The middle class is a myth. It doesn't exist. Because you're either struggling to pay your medical bills and your mortgage or your rent or your car or your whatever, or you're not. There's this baby boomer middle class that was created through the 50s all the way up to the 90s. It doesn't exist anymore. And because baby boomers are still around and they're still voting and they're still an active part of society, they still buy into it. When people of my generation, Generation X, and the millennials and I guess there's a new thing called Zoomers now. They all know that this is an active lie that they're being told. Or at least they're more open to believing it. But the baby boomers vote, and a lot of people in my generations don't. I don't vote. I refuse to vote. I refuse to be a part of a system that is paying lip service to a democracy that we don't have. You look at a presidential election. You can lose the popular vote but win the electoral college and still become president. What is the purpose of the popular vote? What is the purpose of me taking time out of my life to go stand in line with a bunch of other people and stand in a booth and push a button or draw a line or whatever, if that can be overruled by another government body? It's not real democracy. It's not real. They lie to us and we eat it up. Country music, apple pie, American flags on trucks. It's all to give us pride in something that's not really there. I saw the stupidest thing I've ever seen yesterday. Toyota Tundra drives by, and the word Tundra on the back of the tailgate is spelled out in stars and stripes letters. It's an Asian-made vehicle. It's not even an American truck. And they're putting the stars and stripes on it because America, damn it. I refuse to be a part of that system. And any way that I can actively not be a part of that system, I am jumping at, because we've allowed them to treat us like slaves and treat us like nothing but working cogs in their machine and keep us docile through professional sports and movies and pop culture. They've created a race of drones. And when I say a race, I mean the human race has gone from being human beings to drones. We're the worker bees. And we're buzzing around, being industrious for the rich. Now, I know a lot of this sounds tinfoil hat-ish. I know that I sound crazy. I'm okay with that. I've hit a point in my life where it's like you can see through the veil. It's like the clouds have parted. We weren't meant to live in high-rises and buy our food at stores. We weren't meant to just serve the rich. We were meant to live. And because of the way culture and society has been set up, we're not able to do that. But everything that you can do is an active resistance to that. And I would implore you, I would beg you, I would encourage you to take that active resistance. Whatever you can do to reduce involvement in a consumer society, even if it's as simple as an herb plant on your windowsill in your apartment, on the 80th floor of an apartment building, even if it's as simple as I'm going to buy the ingredients and make the dinner that I want tonight. You're not going to ever completely reduce your involvement in consumerism, but you can distance yourself from it because it is an amoral and dangerous thing. We've been so conditioned to believe that we have to have the right shoes, the right clothes, or we're not going to fit in, or we have to be the right kind of man, the right kind of woman. We have to be the alpha male. We have to be the sigma male. We have to be the whatever. Being yourself is an active resistance to that culture. You need to realize the corporations, the government, they don't care about you. You only exist in their eyes to serve them. The American government was founded on the belief that the government would serve the people. And that has become corrupted. And now the people are forced to serve the government. I'm not advocating violence in any way. I feel that violence is useless in this kind of a situation. I feel that the most effective way you can resist and change this system that we live in is to reduce your consumption. Even if it's the most simple thing in the world, even if it's just one plant on your windowsill, even if it's one meal that you cook, even if it's making your own coffee in the morning. And somebody's stopping across the street. Maybe this is the government coming to get me for all I'm saying here. No, it's just some old lady. She's putting her seatbelt on. But anything that you can do to remove your dependence and your consumption of society's conveniences is something that you need to do. It's something that you need to make a conscious effort to do. I could go on for another hour and a half, 2 hours about this, but I believe I've made my point. Not everyone's going to be able to grow a garden. Not everyone's going to be able to raise their own meat and their chickens and get bees and get goats for milk and all that. But you do what you can where you can, and that will be an effective active resistance. On that note, I am going to go in. I got to bake our family's bread, and I'm going to be baking bread for a church brother who just had surgery. So I got to get that going, and I got to pickle up a bunch of eggs because my chickens are they're getting into a more productive cycle again. In the winter they kind of slow down, but they're producing some more now, so I got to start pickling up some eggs and get the bread going. I hope wherever you are, you're comfortable, that God is with you, and that you found this enlightening or useful in some way. Thank you.